Alright, so in this tutorial, we're going to work with conditional statements and more specifically the if statement. So now you've got some experience working with different types of data. You know, you've got your integers, your characters, and strings. Um, Now, in order to do, a bit more than just, simply printing stuff out on the screen and, their values, what you can do is sort of compare and see if a variable is at a certain value, then do something, and then if it's greater than some value, do something else. This way you can add sort of a bit of a dynamic to your program and not just have, it do the same thing all the time. Okay, so I've got the basic project set up here. Um, so what we're going to do is first create a couple of variables. I'll just call them num1 equals 2 and create a new integer and set it to 4. So we've got num1 and num2. Now obviously you don't really, well, I mean you could, but you probably won't just start with certain values. You probably will pull them from a database or maybe have the user enter it or something like that. But for the sake of the tutorial, just to keep it simple and quick, I'm gonna declare them right now. So how do you declare a or write a if statement? Well, first you pretty much with everything you need to have the keyword for your statement. So for this, it's simply if. Um, so before I start writing everything, what I'm going to do is create sort of the basic structure of the if statement. So this way you kind of see sort of the skeleton of it before you actually start putting in your other variable names and values or whatever else. Um, so this is simply, it's very simple how you declare an if statement. You see you've got your keyword, you've got two parentheses, and you can have two braces at the end. I'm going to go in more detail with this a bit later, but this is kind of your basic structure of the if statement. Okay, so for these two brackets, whatever goes inside these is sort of your condition. Okay, so what you're saying is if whatever's in here is true, then do this. Okay, um, and that's true for everything. Okay, so whatever is in here, if it's true, it'll execute this. If not, it will skip it and it will go pretty much whatever is after this brace here. Okay, so just to sort of illustrate, what I'll do is create a condition. So let's just say we want to do something if num1 is less than num2, which is the case right now. As you can see, num1, which is 2, is less than num2, which is 4. So how do you say that? We simply type in the variable name. So let's say num1 is less than num2. Okay, and you don't really have to. I just like putting spaces here, but these are completely optional. You don't have to. It all can be crammed together like this, but you can kind of see it doesn't really look that good. So I like to sort of put spaces at least between the the operators here. Um, so as it stands right now, this condition is true, right? So num1 is less than num2, so whatever is here is going to get executed. So what we can do is just simply type in something on the screen. I'll just say it is true. Okay. Um, so just a test. Let's just start debugging, and as you can see, you get the message. It is true. Um, but let's just change something else here. Instead of less than, let's change it to greater than. Okay. So if you try to run it, just try to think what will happen. Okay, this is no longer true. What will happen? Well, technically you shouldn't see anything at all on the screen, right? Because this whole portion, it just gets skipped. This portion, okay? It will go up to here. It will try to evaluate and see if this is true, which it's not going to be, so it'll jump down right here, and it will execute this. So if I try to run it, you can see nothing actually happens. It's right now it's stuck at this line right here. So what we can do is set up a little breakpoint right here. Press start. Um, Actually, I can't remember if I showed you how to debug before because it's been a while since my last tutorial, but simply this little arrow right here shows where the program is right now. So you can hit F10 or at the top here, where is it? There we go. You can press the step over button. So if I press F10 here, you can kind of see it goes to the next line, and now it's waiting for this. As you can see, num2 is still 0, but when I press F10, this line will get executed. So if I press it, you can see num2 is now 4. But anyway, so right now it's at the if statement. It's trying to see if num1 is greater than num2, but this will return false. So just watch what happens when you press F10. So as you can see, it went directly over here. So that's basically how the computer is handling, the if statements. But let's just say that if this is not true, then we want to do something, right? We just don't want to have a blank screen. So what you can do, in addition to the if, is add an else. Okay, so you do it simply just by saying else. Now you don't need the two brackets because whatever happens here, if it's not true, this will happen automatically regardless of the condition. Okay, um, so we can just say, oh, I can just say it is false. So if I try to run it again, you should see it is false. And there you go. Now, okay, so you've got your ifs and your else. Now another thing you can do is do an else if. Okay, now you can only have one else in sort of an if statement sort of structure, because if I try to do an else here, as you can see, it'll give you an error. It's not going to work. But if you want to say, okay, well, if this condition fails, if something else is true, then do that. Okay, so right now, instead of an else, what I'm going to do is completely actually get rid of it, and do an else if. So after an else, you can type an if, and now you can use the brackets and type in your condition. Okay, so let's just say if this is not true, if num1 is equal to 2, then write something. Okay, now when it comes to saying equal in an if statement, you cannot say equal to 2. Okay, because if you remember, the equal sign, as you can see right up here, is used to assign a value. You can't assign a value inside of an if statement. Okay, you're trying to compare it. Okay, so these are two different things, and this is something that beginners sort of struggle with a little bit, but it's very simple. It may be a little bit tedious early on, but after a while, when you keep practicing, it just becomes second nature, and you don't even think about it. So instead of saying an equals, you have to use another way of saying to the compiler that I want to compare over here. I'm not going to set a value. I'm going to try to say if num1 is equal to 2, then do this. So how do you do that? Well, it's very simple. You just simply type in another equal sign. Okay, so you have two equal signs, and the two equal signs means you're trying to compare. So if that's true, then let's say num1 is 2. Okay, so if I try to run it, this, as you can see, this will fail, but it will try to go over here, try to see if this is true, and it's going to be true, and this line will get printed. So if I run, see num1 is 2. Alright, now I'm just gonna create a little bit of a few comments, I guess, here, and show you a few different operators you can use. In addition to the equals and the greater than and less than. So of course you got the greater than or less than. You've also got greater than and equal to. Okay, so these two signs you can use to say if num1 is greater than or equal to 2. So if I were to put greater than or equal to here, and if I were to say num2 is 2 as well, then this statement is true. Okay, so if I were to run it, I'm going to say equal to or greater than. Okay, so if I were to run it, equal to or greater than. Okay, because they're equal to right now. If I were to change num1 to 4, then it's still true because num1 is greater than 2. Alright, there you go. And of course, the same way you can do less than or equals to. But how about something else? What if you want to check for inequality? Okay, if you want to see if you want to do something, you don't care about anything else. If you want to keep doing something, and if they're not equal to, basically, if the two values are not equal to each other, you want to keep doing something. You don't really care what the values are. But if they're equal, then you don't want to do something. You want to do something else. Because how do you say not equal to? For not, you have to use an exclamation mark. Okay, and I think you use that in electricity and engineering and all that stuff too. But for not, you say uh, exclamation mark equal sign. Okay, so it's kind of like how you say it, not equal to. So it's very simple. So if I were to change that, not equal to, and if I run it, this is going to be true because num1 is not equal to num2. Okay, the two values are different. So if I run it, it says not equal to. Okay, that should be it. Uh, for I guess this one, just keep practicing with different types of if statements, else ifs and else's. See what you can do, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.